I had this conversation the other day with some colleagues, and it was about basically just fed up with information, so much information. And being in the fitness business, we are one of the biggest businesses for crazy amounts of information and not knowing how to like sift through all of it. I think today is going to be enlightening because we're talking with Kira from Informed, and Informed is a really, I think, interesting way of getting your news, but in a way that satisfies everybody's ability to want to get news, but literally not be inundated with it when you really don't have the time. Kira, thank you so much for being on. And I wanted to ask, I want you to talk a little bit about Inform, the motivation for doing this, which I think aligns a little bit with what I said, but your philosophy about this as well, I think will really inform people about why you're doing this.
Absolutely. Darian, thank you for having me. It's been delightful chatting with you in the past and excited to bring this discussion to folks as well. You hit the nail on the head there. We live in the in the era of information overload, and we of lagging vocabulary to describe this condition. But most of the time we look for information, we get too much. We don't live in a place where, we want to find an answer to a question like, oh, I don't know where to look. I don't know where to go. It's hard to find this information. It's very much the opposite. You have any sort of question, you have a half-baked question, and everybody from every corner of the internet, speaking primarily digital, but also in physical life as well, people are throwing information at you. And a lot of it is solicitation. A lot of it is advertisement, which makes it even harder for you to get an answer to a question, whether that's how you should diet or how you should work out, or whether it is how you can keep up with the news and keep yourself informed. And so recognizing that sort of information overload era, we were very motivated to find a solution that would make for a healthier information diet for people.
Yeah, and I like the word, I like information diet. That's interesting saying that because I'm definitely one of the people who, and I like to be transparent, has been really fed up with news and information, not just their general kind of geopolitical news, but also in my profession in fitness. There's just so much quackery and so much misinformation and just craziness just regularly. And this isn't just in the digital age. This has been in fitness well before that time. I guess you could say technology, late night infomercials, and just really outrageous behavior. And it makes you almost want to just fade from the information. So we'll talk a little bit about maybe the dangers of just fading completely from information and how informed helps people to stay in touch with information all around the world, but also protect their, honestly, their mental health from the
Absolutely.
news.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important, and we don't talk about it enough as we should in our mission, but the mental health layer of information overload or the impact of information overload on your mental health is understated. And this constant bombardment of information, wherever it is, whatever information it is that you're seeking, can lead to just general disorientation. It leads to mistrust. And when you stop trusting things around you, unhealthy things happen in your body. You become this sort of skeptic, this cynical person that is no longer able to just have open and clear and transparent conversation because you're constantly looking out for who is soliciting me, who is advertising to me, and or who is trying to push their ulterior motive on my curiosity and my just information consumption. And so there's a lot of costs related to losing trust. One of the more important ones is when you lose trust for the media and you lose trust for ways where you source information, you generally, and we see this across large populations, resign from consumption. You say, you know what, I don't trust any of this. This is not healthy. This is motivated somehow with an ulterior motive. And you're like, I don't want to deal with this. So then people withdraw from reading the news, which is specifically the type of media that we cover. And when you have that, it leads to a whole trickle down of consequences. Because once you say, I don't want to consume information about the world I inhabit, you give up, you give up the building blocks of your own opinion, where you don't have the facts, you don't have the information. So you become much more vulnerable to other people's opinions, other people's emotional drama and draw, and you lose the ground basis for what makes up your own opinion about a subject. We have a really broad range of folks using our platform. Yesterday, I was talking to a farmer, now talking to you, a leader in the fitness and wellness and world of health. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to a lawyer. There's this huge range of people that find or finding again that it is important to get back into learning about the world they inhabit, to get back into being informed and not having to sacrifice being influenced. Because that's where we really play. We offer a way for people to be informed without being influenced in any way. And we need to bring back that muscle, bring back that institution that I feel has been robbed of us.
Why do you think it's gotten this far?
One of my favorite questions, and I trace it back to, and I've been following media for a long time, is three main horsemen of the apocalypse. And the first one happens probably about a decade to 2 decades ago, is the prominence of advertisement revenue in media companies. The majority of companies you think of today, whether they're doing any type of media, but especially news media, they aren't getting their revenue, sustaining their operations through the reader. They're sustaining their operations through the advertiser. And so you may think you're the client of these companies, but you're actually the product that is being sold to advertisers. That's why for you, or for most people, news are free. But you are the one being sold. Your eyeballs, your attention, your engagement is being sold, and your data is being sold to advertisers. And so they're the real clients of the industry. They're the real folks that are supporting the operation and are paying for it. And when you start optimizing, as most media companies do today for advertisers, you introduce a very different incentive structure that has nothing to do with the reader's incentives. We want to get in, get an answer to a question, inform ourselves, and leave because we have other things to do. We have a workout to get to. But the advertiser wants, in conspiracy with the media company, wants us to stay there for as long as possible and engage and read and engage. And as a result, the articles are longer than they should be. There's advertisement left and right and all over. There's clickbait meant to hijack your attention, and then clickbait and sensationalism within the article meant to retain and hold hostage your attention for as long as possible. And so those incentives are contradictory to the reader, and yet they become commonplaces. That's the way business is done. That's the way the media world operates. That I think is the first and the most important sort of horseman of the apocalypse. And the second is social media and the marriage of social media technology, social media psychology, and all the behavioral science hacks that are designed to keep us endlessly scrolling, endlessly engaging, the marriage of that technology and era with traditional news media. And what that created is a way of, wow, there's a culture of keeping people entertained, keeping people distracted, people disoriented. And that has led to the doubling down on this effect that you're not really there for your own sake. You're being held hostage. Your attention is being held hostage by this traditional media company that's now partnered up with social media. That's the second sort of cause. And the third we're actually living through right now, and that's the rise of AI software, which is a category of software that is so much more capable than we've seen before, that is able to allow news companies and any media company to produce noise at a rate that is so much cheaper and so much faster than ever before. So we're seeing this a lot across platforms, but the synthetic content that's being pushed out there. And I think we'll see a lot more of that over the years to come. But these influences, as they compound and combine, created a world where reading news is a hostile experience. It's you against the company. And I just want to get the answer. I just want to get the point. But you're being put through this obstacle course of ads, clickbait, sensationalism, wordiness, not to mention all the bias. And it's become very difficult, very difficult.
Can you give an example of more? Because I think this third point about AI people somewhat understand it, but I still think it's because it's much newer, there's still a lot of like mystery on some level to the layperson. So, what's an example of synthetic content that someone could start looking out for to inform themselves?
Absolutely. And I think most of us can recognize it when we see it and we're like, this article's not really saying anything. It's like empty thought leadership. And I'm sure you see a lot
Mhm.
of that in fitness industry as well. You mentioned
Yes.
quacking, which is a beautiful way of describing it. There's a lot of quacking going on in all across media. It's as simple as go to ChatGPT and you say, write an article about top 10 fitness advice, and then it will just spin it out. It will just do it. And when you overwhelm the feed, overwhelm the reader with that type of content, you don't immediately understand or know that this is just regurgitated content that isn't providing a lot of thinking, that isn't a lot of original thought, is just a aggregation of content that's already out there. Most of it is just empty kind of thought reposting. You see this a lot on social media platforms, on LinkedIn, I think tons, something, the volume of bots and synthetic content is growing substantially, but we see this across every platform. And those are the main town halls of our culture. With the news media specifically, you're now able to have articles that don't really say much. They have this clickbait headline and they have sensational, this is important, you have to click on this. When you click into it, turns out there's no data, there's no information, there's no reporting, there's actually nothing in this article. It's just clickbait. And most of the news sources are peppered with these articles. Even Associated Press, which is, in my opinion, the best in the game, is peppered with these sort of clickbaity articles about nothing. And it's obviously killing their own credibility. So someone needs to stop this internally a long time ago. But even if you and I can tell, hey, this article's not saying anything, the volume of these articles makes it really hard to find the real deal. Makes it hard to find the reporter who's actually out there on the ground, talking to the victims, talking to the military, talking to Wall Street traders, on the ground in different scenarios. It's harder to find the actual thoughtful content because 9 articles out of 10 are this regurgitation that's been ChatGPT generated.
Yeah, very well said. I think I've seen so much of this in the last month. I feel as more people come on, quote unquote, online to it, and they start you seeing how this potentially is a time saver in their mind and that this will help me get ideas out. But that idea of empty thought leadership, I haven't thought about it that way. Actually, it's also saying a lot with saying nothing, but seeming important at the same time for that. How do you think your platform informed combats things like that?
Totally. And when I think about the thought leadership piece, it's mostly like things I'm seeing on LinkedIn and social media. It's slightly different when it's in the news industry. It's like articles that claim to have information, but they don't, which is similar spirit. I just wouldn't call it thought leadership. I'd call it just empty clickbait articles. I think with the rise of AI and its permeation into everything that we know, we're gonna have kind of two sides. The one side that is leveraging AI to create noise, to generate content, to flood the channels. And the other side, the more righteous side, that's the side we play on, of actually using AI to denoise,
Mm,
declutter the media landscape. And so that's very much how we think of our use of AI. We are an AI company. We have humans, but we also have technology that enables our work as decluttering and de-biasing and de-noising the media that's becoming increasingly more so, all those things. And so AI is very powerful as a type of software, as a type of tool, and we're able to leverage it to undo the damage done by the other
mm,
side. And so when we think about informed in our technology, we monitor all the news of the world and we filter against folks that are clearly biased. Christian organization, Christian news, it's okay. It's okay that these things exist, but they're not your untainted, pure factual information. I would even say Fox News fits in that category sometimes where it's not really a news organization. It's more like an opinion organization
right.
that is expressing opinions about news. So we steer clear from those and we steer clear from reposters, which is organizations that just repost content. There's a lot of those actually. We focus on the original reporters and primary sources. We have a real obsession with primary source reporting where we go directly to the White House, directly to CDC, directly to Wall Street researchers to find out what they're saying instead of hearing it from somebody else. We prefer to take it from the horse's mouth. So our technology enables us to read at scale tens of thousands of articles per hour. Forcing a human team to do that would be a human rights violation.
That's right.
So we wouldn't do that. But we combine the output and the increased capacity of our AI software with the human touch and the human ingenuity, which is at the end of the process. We have some sort of you can think of it as a quality assessment piece where you have a human editorial team supervising the output and making sure that we can take full responsibility for our content, which is the piece that's missing if we're to do just end-to-end software. In our case, it's not a use at your own risk software like ChatGPT is, or like Grok, or like Anthropic. In our case, we retain the credibility of a media company, but we also get the leverage and the coverage through our technology. So we kind of have the best of both worlds, and they're also being used to overcome the shortcomings of each side.
Is there any resistance you run into about denoising news from other organizations or just people you've talked to and go, how would you even do this? Why is this even a thing for you? Like this, maybe this is something that is also just contributing to this same problem. What do you say about that? Or have you encountered that?
Yeah, how we encountered resistance or skepticism, it's hard to say that we have, because
Mm,
we all know the world we live in. We all know the spam calls, the scams, the email spam no one asked for. We see all these billboards peppering our highways, and we see all of that and more on our devices. And so everywhere we look, there is solicitation. There is some sort of a click here, do this, buy this, subscribe to this. Wait a second, before you go, play this game, read this other article. There's this constant solicitation. And so when you voice that problem, even when you just begin to voice that problem, people resonate very quickly and say, yes, I hate this experience.
yeah.
And so we found more resonance than we actually thought. We started out with this idea that we would be a concierge service that puts this wall of privacy and respect and honoring of time between the toxic news industry and the user. We thought this concierge layer would be appealing just to the executives, just to the leaders, just to the leaders of industry, because they're busy and they value being informed and not being influenced. We've been really surprised because the growing base of people that is attracted to our solution has been widening and widening as we grow. And we have people, I was mentioning, we're talking to a farmer yesterday who is a berry farmer in California. And I'm not an executive of anything. I just grow plants and I enjoy it. That's what gives me meaning. But I'm very busy and I'm fed up with the way news is fed to me. And so we're finding resonance with these more blue collar, more regular people that are not these world leaders. And we're saying, actually, we're targeting a bigger problem, or the same problem for a bigger group of people than we thought before. And that's been giving us a lot of reassurance.
This is interesting. Makes me think of a similar discussion I had the other day in my business. And I'm obviously catering towards the audience, which is fitness professionals here. But I think this is a parallel idea, and that the rise of all this news and noise has created a space for something simpler, almost like a kickback. Of the movement in this space creates space for something else that actually somewhat existed back in the day in a different format. In fitness, we're seeing this too, is that we're getting so much information. We're inundated with so much technology and the ability to write programs from ChatGPT, right, for exercise programs or submit to different things, that actually the human experience is becoming more valuable in fitness than it ever has before because of technological innovation. So I told a colleague of mine the other day that actually maintaining a very strong one-on-one fitness-based business will become more valuable in the future as connectivity, true human connectivity, becomes a premium because it's not happening as much. And I feel similar parallels when you're always, life is marketing at this point. If you're always being marketed to, not being marketed to is gold, is amazing, is extraordinary. No. And that's where I see Informed is now that, in all transparency, I am a subscriber of Informed. It's great. I check it on my phone. I look at it literally very briefly. I move on. That's literally the extent of it. That's valuable because of the noise, which I don't like, or that.
100%. And I think it's going to get a lot noisier before it gets quieter. I think it's going to get a lot noisier. So I would almost say we are early in our building of this because we think we're in an overwhelmed world. I think give it a couple of years and we'll live in a world that is cyberpunk, futuristic, dystopian, where it's so hard to trust things around us. It's so hard to block out that noise. We want to be prepared for that world and give people the alternative now and obviously double down on that later on. But yeah, apart from the technology, apart from the innovations that we've come up with, our major innovation is just saying, what if we just respected people's time? What if we just respect people's attention and protected it from all the people that want to hijack it? And that's really, that philosophy is why we exist and what distinguishes us from any traditional news media or any traditional media company at all. We are an anti-news company.
I like your honesty. I did not see that coming, that it's going to get noisier. I'm hanging on that a little more just because that does resonate with me, because it's not like there's, oh, we have this and boom, it's going to stop. You're saying that prepare for an even crazier experience of being solicited to and marketed for. That's what you're saying. Like, this is real. This is just a tipping point.
Absolutely. I think it's almost not a contrarian point of view. I think with the rise of AI, which is just doing everything better, we're going to see robot salespeople. And there's a lot of them already. I'm based in California, and in Bay Area, there's all the talk about adding a software bot member of a team. We're going to see all these companies that would be doing the soliciting grow in size, grow in capacity, increase their ability to target people, increase their ability to get in front of your face. And that's going to happen across every channel. I feel like we're in the early innings of how noisy it can be, which is why we're like, we need to build something that is an alternative. Because one of the problems that we have maybe haven't touched on, but people don't feel like they have an alternative. For a very long time, you aren't exposed to alternatives that are viable, that are large, and that you can be aware of, because all the traditional media companies that run monopolies and oligopolies around the media world don't want to expose you because they control distribution of information. They don't want to expose you to an alternative that would undermine their business, undermine their industry. And so most people aren't aware that alternatives exist. We are also one of very few alternatives. I can't say I know anyone else who does what we do. And I don't think a lot of people have the incentive to do what we do from a traditional revenue perspective, because we are so confined to serving the user that we will only ever take the revenue from the user. And that limits us substantially as a business. Without the advertisement revenue, without the partners, the sponsors, that whole jungle, we are giving up a good amount of money to prioritize and to put first our mission and our user. And we're a bit of a contrarian company to exist because we are so mission driven and we would like to sustain ourselves. But for us, the revenue and the profit, they come way later. So there are some limitations on us getting out there in the world. We're a bit of a secret, and we're probably going to be kept a secret for some time.
Can you talk further about this? This is a good time to really talk about the mechanics of Informed and the revenue aspect, because you it does cost money, a monthly fee to have Informed. But as you said, that fee is directly from the user, not from the ad revenue, is what I'm hearing correctly for that. So talk a little bit of like how someone could become a part of Informed and just the mechanics of how someone signs up and how this is different from other organizations and contrary to that.
Totally. I think that's a great way of framing it is when we started out thinking about the problem, right? The problem of information overload, the problem of the misinformation that sort of goes parallel with information overload. We thought about how can we create a better solution that is better in every way from the traditional news media companies. And there's many different aspects. One is we committed from the earliest, that's the reason we exist, is we're never going to have advertisement. That is just not what we stand for. It's not what we do. We believe in a way for you to get news without any extras, without any solicitations, without any of that surrounding noise that we've become so used to. So there's never going to be advertisement. There never is. There is never sponsorship or someone else's perspective influencing what is important and what a user should be reading. It has nothing to do with any other party except for the user. It's all about the user. And so I'll touch on the mechanics. I can get back into how we're doing everything different. I think it might become obvious. On a traditional news source, traditional news site, you have to make an account. You have to opt into being tracked, where they put cookies on your browser and you have to constantly be giving them data. A lot of it is even optional. You don't really have a choice. You have to give them your data. Obviously, you have to pay, and a lot of it is a little bit expensive. And then once you're in it, you're being fed advertisement. You're being kept in the ecosystem. I think the New York Times is a very good example. Before you finish reading an article, they show you another article. And then they're like, wait a second, get the app, get our own app. Now that you're in the app, do the crossword, do the puzzle. Once you're finished with that, here's the answers to last night's trivia. Now, wait a second, subscribe to this newsletter on this specific topic. Now, here's another advertisement. Now, here's a sponsorship. Now, here is a new article. And now you've been doom scrolling. You've been stuck in this engagement loop there for longer than you wanted to. And you're like, damn, like, I don't want to spend so much time on this. How can we do everything different? We say. And our news concierge takes all the time and the money involved with reading all the news around all these different sources, which can take hours a day of filtering. Is this important? Is this not important? Is this a bias or is this fact? Is this an opinion or is this a sponsorship? It's hard to constantly be in that filtering mode. Informed is a news concierge that, again, leverages part software and part human to read all the news of the world for you and rank them based on significance. How does it change the human condition? How important is it for you to know these things today? Or is this just celebrity gossip and celebrity drama? And it combines the knowledge of all these articles, all these different things on any given issue to identify a common fact base on an issue, whether that's tariffs, whether that's politics, whether that's economics of a certain kind, whether it's business transactions, things that really matter. We range in our topics and present it to you in the most minimal executive briefing that gives you the meat of the content so you know what's happening without requiring you to read further or to click into it or to spend a lot of time. Every single text we send every single morning takes maybe 30 seconds to read, potentially even less, depending on your reading speed. I'm a slow reader. And it's run through an SMS channel, which is the last channel left in our culture, in our society, that has not been overloaded with solicitations and spam and all these different things. We operate a toll-free number and you opt into it. And we used to be referral only, but for any listeners, we're open to, you automatically get referral through Darian by listening in. So it's not something that is spammy or scammy. You actually have to opt into the service by texting our toll-free number. And as soon as you want to leave, you can just press stop and you don't have to create an account. You don't have to worry about forgetting a password. You don't have to worry about giving permissions, being solicited. Once you say stop, it's over. And we're never going to make it difficult for you to come or to leave. That's part of our mission to do everything better. And it's been long-winded, but to just summarize, Informed is a news concierge service that texts you must-know news across a range of topics every morning so that you, who doesn't have a lot of time, doesn't have a lot of bandwidth in terms of attention to spend time doing this, can be informed without being influenced by all the things that come with news in traditional news media industry. And so that's how Informed works mechanically. And hopefully that was clear.
That was great. It operates exactly how Kira said it operates. I get it every morning. I open it, I look at it, 30 seconds, generally like that, and I move on. And I loved when I signed up, went through the whole process of like when it said, hey, if you don't want this anymore, just stop and it's over, which is great because, and I'll give this example of especially social media sites, they make it so impossible for you to get off of the platform. It's like the delete your account button is some magical button that exists in some other world that you have no access to unless you're a portal to there through time travel. It's every block and wall to keep you in there.
Yeah.
And I love that this is just as simple as if I don't want this, I just stop, I'm done for that. And so as someone here, I'm loving this. I'm a user. I'm not talking about this and go, oh, yeah, this is a great thing. I don't know anything about it. I look at it every morning because I want to be informed because I've been one of those resigned people. It was like, I can't be a part of this. This is just destroying my psyche on a regular basis for that. But it is important to know the big points, what's going on, but not get pulled into the rabbit hole of it, which is what happens for a lot of people. They get pulled in the rabbit hole and then they become self-radicalized in many ways. So if you have too much news, you almost like just get pulled in this hole. If you have nothing, you also get pulled in a hole for being susceptible to falling for a lot of stuff someone tells you because you hear nothing else for that. So there's really not a lot of ways to just stay up to stuff, but then not get massively influenced. And I think that's the crime of our time, is where these institutions are monetizing humans in a very insidious way to make people believe that they're getting something one way, but on the back end is the magic trick. It's just, oh no, we're getting the other stuff. You're not the user, you're the product for that. And we're going to keep you in that zone as long as possible until you wake up. Maybe you probably won't if we don't change. There's no incentive to change for the company. What's the incentive? For people to feel better? That's never been a great incentive for a lot of things. But for people, I wish we were better to each other about that, but that doesn't usually exist in these institutions. Yeah.
Totally. And I love the analogy that we used when we talked last, and I thought it was helpful. It's like you have your diet and you could be binge eating or you could be starving yourself. And obviously you don't want to be in any of those places. You want to be in a balanced, healthy diet. It's the same with information.
Yeah.
You want to have an information diet that is healthy, that is balanced. But as you illustrated with those two extremes, some people binge eat information and are susceptible to information overload. And some people starve themselves and say, I don't want to eat any of this junk food. This is gross. And so they starve themselves. And both extremes have substantial risks, the radicalization, the polarization, and the resignation and apathy that comes with the other. And so we're trying to put forward and pioneer this healthy, just enough and non-overwhelming way of having an information diet that is just healthy. That's just the essentials, just your greens, no junk food and no overeating, but also not starving yourself.
It's just such a great analogy, right? It's intuitive to a lot of people. They go, oh yeah, when I overeat, I feel terrible. When I don't eat enough or I barely eat anything, I have no energy. I don't feel good. Life is always really amazing when there's balance and there's homeostasis and we're in the middle. The problem is that our larger influential things in life do not like that middle area at all. They're like, this is not money making. This is too logical and too reasonable. We need to be on these other ends because this is where the money's made, on these two ends. The people in the middle here, these aren't our money people. They're too reasonable for these things, right? So it's this pendulum swing regularly that we're constantly batting this ball. We're volleying back and forth from binging to starving to in our news. And we do this in fitness all the time too. It's extreme workouts or gentle, don't do anything. Just, it's like we can't meet in a place of a reasonable stimulus. We're either overstimulated or we're understimulated. And sound informed feels like I'm getting some stimulation, but I'm not being overstimulated. I'm getting just what I need.
Another angle that we could probably parallel with fitness as well is people don't work out, people don't do anything, they're inactive. And then suddenly, maybe it's a New Year's resolution. They're like, okay, got a gym membership, I'm going. And then they overdo it. And they're this sprint of like the next couple of weeks. They just go from zero activity to maximum activity. Then they're likely to get injured. They're likely to say, okay, this is not for me, this is too much, instead of just making it part of the routine. And part of how we think of, I'm sure you share that on the fitness side, is part of how we think about the information fitness with Informed is instead of going through these phases of, this is another kind of axis that's separate from what we just mentioned, which is going from no readership at all to suddenly something happens. And you're like, okay, I need to read up on everything. I need to catch up on everything. It doesn't really work that way. You can't really catch up on fitness. You can either make it part of your routine or you can have worse health. And so with Informed, we try to pioneer also a routine of checking the news in this non-overbearing format where, yeah, every day, every other day, maybe a few times a week, just open your phone and there it is, what's been happening. And you don't have to go in these drought modes where you are not doing anything and then go really hard on, you buy some subscriptions and then read the whole weekend because you're trying to catch up on this issue. That is also a form of not healthy. And you want to establish a routine that is consistent and that is non-overbearing, but that is something you can make part of your life. And so that's another way of we try to, not just in the sizing of it, but also in the frequency of it, to make it a routine item so that people can stay up to speed without falling behind at any point. Because as with fitness, that there is no shortcut to having a routine.
No, absolutely not. I was just telling a client this morning, I was like, who had just started, and I said, this is not glamorous. Showing up regularly to be consistent with looking at improving the physical aspect of your body. It's not like which on a feed or on a show or TV. It's actually very unglamorous. It's just doing it regularly. It's often not televised or produced or curated. It's just showing up regularly. It's fairly monotonous. Not a lot of people know about it. And you just keep moving forward and you're shaping a behavior of consistency that over time leads to a much better feeling about who you are as a person or that. And that's my hope with Informed is when we connected is that it operates just like that over time. As I get it even more and more, I'll start feeling a lot better again about news because I think that's where a huge amount of people is. They're in a massive negative spiral about news. So it feels like it's a way, at least inching along, a way to help people feel better about news and re-entering that thing that having that become part of their life again, but not in a crazy way like it has been,
100%.
There it is. Kira, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. Any parting words about Informed? Or I know we talked about the mechanics and maybe just if people want to sign up, just give them the details so
That's
they can
right.
make that decision.
We have an uncommon way of joining us, but it's also super direct. And there is no account management, there's no passwords, there's no privacy violations. We operate a toll-free number. And so for anyone who is interested in upgrading their information diet and part of Inform, you can simply text the word fit to 844-406-INFO, which is 844-406-4636. And that's our number. Just text the word fit, and that's the extent of onboarding, and you're in.
Love it. Really. And I've experienced this myself. It's super easy. and it'll start you on the right pathway and have a better information based diet. Kira, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Darian. It's been delightful.